The Denver National Chinese Martial Arts Championship is a tournament that we hold every year in order to bring competitors from around the nation to Denver in order to compete and expose themselves and our students to different forms of Kung Fu and different people in the Kung Fu community.
It's an annual tradition. It helps us to see how the Kung Fu community has grown, and it helps us to keep in touch with each other. It's something like a work convention, but for the Kung Fu world.
As hosts, we want to sort of just make this open and invite as many people as we can just to spread Kung Fu. Our goal for the competitors was to see where they're at. It's a good way to self-test, a good way to ask different teachers from different places and with different experience levels what they did wrong, how they can improve, or what they did really well.
This year we had people out from California, out from Illinois. We had masters coming over from China. We had people up from New Mexico. We had just under 50 competitors this year. We put out the information to schools across the nation, and typically the teachers select students that they want to come out. So then they go and register for the tournament. At our school, we spend some time with our students to figure out what forms we think they're doing well, and then we kind of focus in and have them practice those more.
So based on how long they've been training with us and which forms they know, we give recommendations as to this one you're strong in, this one will look a little better for the judges. There's some that they're learning that they just don't have down yet, so maybe they'll do a form that is a little older for them that they are more familiar with.
And so with that, we focus on building each section of the form, and then with each section, as a coach, we have an idea, okay, this is what the style is going to be, this is how you can fit into this form. And then once that student understands that they can fit into the form, that student builds up their own sort of style within that form.
Determine a form that you want to do for the tournament and start working on that one at least once a day, but work on it pretty heavily. And then we evaluate them throughout that training process until the tournament comes up.
We'll run some practice tournaments. We may add in some extra things for tournaments like holds and pauses to give the judges time to sort of digest the form that they're watching.
So it's a lot of time. I mean, it's like school. Instead of sitting there taking notes, it's hands-on, and so the whole body is immersed. And I think each student gets a bigger learning experience doing it immersively than just passively. Instead of sitting there and watching, they're doing the movements, getting told the movements, and then fix and refining the movements even more. And so then the movement and the student become one, and the student actually just takes it on from there, where they turn it into their own style and their own form.
The rings we set up to kind of divide people out, so we've got the judges watching similar people and similar styles. So the center ring was all adults and traditional. So everyone was doing either traditional northern, traditional southern Kung Fu. One ring we had set up to do all internal, so people that have spent more time doing things like Tai Chi, Xingyi, Bagua. That way those judges are more familiar with what they're watching. And the last ring was for youth, so that was Wushu and traditional kids.
By experience, it is based on how many years of practice. So under a year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 4, and then 4 up.
Being a judge at the competition, the mindset that I go into is seeing how well they're performing, right? So, for example, a beginner, the lower score, of the range is if they score a little lower score, they have a lot to work on. And it makes sense if they're a beginner that they have such a larger range and bigger potential to grow. But if they get a higher score on the beginner end, then it shows that, okay, they're ready to move on to that next level and show a little bit more of their form and their style.
So scoring kind of varies based on their levels. And then what the judges are looking for are Typically Kung Fu fundamentals, so things like a good stance, power.
Primarily, I was taking into effect that experience level, looking at the students saying how far into their training of that level do they look? Are they not confident in their forms? Do they keep losing their footing?
You know, if their horse stance isn't too well, or if their bow stance isn't that well, I'll look at that and see, okay, maybe there needs to be a little bit more work put into there. As they get into the higher levels, I like to see a little bit more precision in their movements.
For novices and beginners, we're looking to see that they remember their form, that they know how to do a stance, that those stances are recognizable. For intermediate students, they should be starting to look like they're fighting, like they're chaining some energy from their body. Their punches are connecting with their hips and putting some power into it. Advanced and masters should have all of that and kind of intensity in what they're doing. They should have a focus and an intent that should be visible behind all of those movements.
And so the points are sort of just like a grade. You know, in the national tournaments or international competitions, they have a true grading style of, okay, this is the points off, this is how much they can earn. And traditionally with that system is they get the highest score and they get points knocked off with every, you know, they get deductions. So for example, like an advanced person would get a 9.5, and then every mistake that they made or whatever the judges see is a deduction. But for us, we sort of go within this range, that way it's a little bit more fair for the competitors and the students. They have to have a good control of their body, especially with wushu. It's very acrobatic, high jumps, you know, high energy. So with that high energy form, you know, it's very nice to see, okay, the student has control over their body and has control over how they're moving, where they're moving, and then staying in within the 40 by 20 ring.
Aside from the glory of victory, we do a standard bronze, silver, gold medal system. So based on the score the competitor receives, it is evaluated against the scores of other people in their division, and it is then based on the numbers for second, third, gold, silver, bronze.
We actually had a larger variety of schools coming out this year.
You know, it's a good way for us to sort of go out there and see and sort of manage also how the tournament is and what we can improve. And I think this year was a really good learning year. We took a lot of the good things from previous tournaments, but we also saw a lot of new challenges this year. And I think we can really make it a lot better as our identity grows in the Kung Fu community.
I'm excited by the enthusiasm and the energy that not only the students had, but by the teachers. So I think that in future years we can make a really excellent gathering.